there's no question that the giant in sports in America is the NFL, right? And to think that almost 20 million people watch Caitlin Clark.
Yeah.
Those are NFL numbers on Sundays. I mean, that's the number one driver for all sports, and which creates a lot of people to be very bullish in women's sports. But going back to well, we have the links as well. But I do think that the NFL and the NBA are global sports, especially the NBA. It's growing year over year. If you look at social media as an example, as a metrics, we're almost 10-1 to the NFL. We're almost 15-1 to Major League Baseball. So LeBron James, Michael Jordan, Steph Curry, these are global names. I think that is going to be a different landscape, but you'll have more contributors. Maybe you have NBC pop in, Amazon, Apple. There's a lot of suitors. It's not going to be the traditional. So ESPN may not write its biggest check, but is there? I'm not speaking for the NBA. I'm just giving you my opinion. That you may have a world where NBC may split the finals with ESPN and ABC. So I think you'll get to a similar result, just a different way.
So you said those words, and I knew those people. So I feel like I'm not qualified to ask this question. But then for someone like me, who's a newbie who maybe wants to watch some stuff, like I don't know. I need like a spreadsheet to like find out like what's playing where, when, what time, like Amazon Prime, Netflix, something like that. And I wonder if that's going to be a hurdle. Jason, what do you think to like?
I mean, it could be. I mean, and Paul knows this space better than anyone. There's been sort of a fracturing, but now sort of a reconsolidation, it feels like, of how we're going to consume sports. I mean, you've followed this for years. You know that live sports, Alex knows it from being on television and being broadcast himself, people love live sports, and that it's one of the only things that actually keeps people coming back to live content. I do think, though, we are in this weird world where sometimes you don't know where to find it, and yet when you do, it attracts the eyeballs.
My New York Yankees off to a great start this year.
Yes.
What's your scouting
You could
report?
say our New York Yankees
I don't know.
in this room.
Yes.
Off to a great start this year. And what's your scouting report of them?
Well, I think the Yankees have done a bunch of good things this year. Excuse me. One of them is they've introduced baseball people back. If you think about the powerhouse of the Yankees, they've been built by great baseball people like Gene Michaels, Stick Michael, as they call him. Lou Piniella, Billy Martin. They've gone away from that the last 4 or 5 years, and they've suffered tremendously. The fact they brought baseball people back in, they brought a much more balanced lineup, meaning, Alex, there's more lefties than righties. Historically, Yankee Stadium is better for lefties.
Really?
Last year, they had like 9 righties in the lineup, which is way too much. They've gone back to a much balanced lineup, and now they have the best 1-2 punch in the sport with Aaron Judge and Juan Soto. The challenge is, do they have enough pitching, is one. And two, they cornered themselves by bringing in Juan Soto and not have a long-term contract. When now, is he going to want the Ohtani contract for $700 million? And is he just a one-year wonder here in New York? I think he's going to have a massive year. The question is, can they keep him? Second question is, do they have enough pitching to win the title?
Well, let me ask you that question. We like to think, New York fans, that New York is a selling point. Everybody would love to be. If you can be a star here, you can be a star anywhere. And there's nothing better to be a star than New York City. A lot of players, I think they find it hard to play in New York. What was your experience coming to New York? I know you're a New Yorker, so you kind of know this, but some of the people you saw during your career.
No, Paul, you're exactly right. I mean, some people, the kitchen's maybe a little bit too hot for some players, and you know right away if they're uncomfortable. It's a different place. It's the biggest media market in the world. As they say, the pinstripes are very, very heavy, and not everyone can carry them. Juan Soto is obviously one that is going to play and play really well. Aaron Judge, the Jeters of the world, they're icons for life because they won here in New York. But some, I mean, they melt into the sun. I mean, you've seen a couple over the last 4 or 5 years that were a shell of themselves, and you quickly have to pivot and get them out of here.
One interesting thing on that note, first of all, we talked to Michael Strahan about that on a previous episode of The Deal. One person we are literally going to tape with today, it's one of the reasons Alex is in the building, is Stephen A. Smith. And he's actually talked about Soto and like the power of the pinstripes, maybe enough to lure him in to stay. So tune into that episode of The Deal coming up in a few weeks, because Stephen A., he's got literally some takes. That's his whole job. That's what he does.
And what a career.
So this is really cool. Like, what you guys do is super fun. Jason comes in and he talks about it. You can tell he's like totally digging this. What's it like to work with Jason Kelly? How do you manage that guy? Like, what is
the ego,
that?
the diva?
Alex, we already made a deal this morning because we are, he's covered private equity. He's a great writer. So I say he writes, and I use the bat, so I hit, he writes, and we make a good team. But no, Alex, in all seriousness, is really the intersection of Jason's career, mostly here at Bloomberg, and my career, mostly with the Yankees. And the fact is, what we're talking about is exactly both. And we live in a world where it used to be sports and media and culture. Now all three have come together, and that's what we try to take away. And then also a lot of lessons learned in this world of Shark Tank, where young people want to be more entrepreneurs than athletes.
Yeah.
Right? And that's, I think we're serving up and teaching and hoping, inspiring through storytelling a lot of great
And I like what you guys do, kind of bringing sports, entertainment, all that together. And we're seeing it actually now in college sports with the NIL, the transfer portals. A lot of these kids are able to monetize their value.
Totally.
But there's some downside to that, it seems like. If you talk to, Coach Jay Wright at Villanova, or maybe even Coach K, who I'm going to see today down at Duke, or some others, they're saying, boy, I'm not sure, maybe we've gone too far. What do you think, Alex, about what's happening in the college ranks about paying some of these athletes?
It's a very dangerous road. It's a very dangerous and very slippery. And the reason why I love that players are getting, the finances and all of that, but maybe there's a structure where there's more parity. Maybe there's a structure where kids don't get the money when they're not ready for it, and they get in trouble by not knowing how to pay taxes. And is this more of a liability than an asset? I'm all for somebody getting market value, but is there a world that we can, hold until they're 30 or 35 until they get the majority of that, where that money's compounding for them? So gift